Welcome everyone to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. So in California and in New York, which are heavily deep state controlled areas, they're rolling out the COVID restrictions and warning people and trying to push a new booster, okay? So, and we knew this was gonna happen. We've been warned. There's been a lot of people out there telling us that this was gonna happen. The beta test is for a climate lockdown or for an emergency lockdown around a war act or a war effort, okay? And, you know, it's crazy. It's starting to all line up. Now, one of the things that people are also talking about is how there isn't going to be a 2024 election. And in that way, this emergency measure is going to be passed. And that so that the current administration stays and that a one-party state is achieved in the United States and all this stuff. Yeah, and it's very possible, right? Like this is what we're moving towards. But the thing is, it's really this thing of people staying on point and refusing to silence themselves and to speak out, right? Censorship is another thing. Like that's going to come up real, like as we get closer and closer to 2024. That's a thing that we're going to have to deal with. And they're rolling out right now technology and the people and everything to censor and to get people to sort of shift in their way and not continue on the awakening, which is what's happening, is this awakening process. They're doing this, right? The vaccine was also kind of like this experimentation directly from the Bill Gates Foundation and strongly connected to Fauci, right? And so now these guys are playing, trying to cover their tracks, trying to make it sound like all of the media organizations in the world are trying to push this idea that nobody tried to force masks or a lockdown or vaccination, which isn't true, right? And trying to make themselves look like the good guys, right? And trying to sort of give validity to these bought and sold medical practitioners that have been pushing these experimental shots, okay? And so that's what's coming back, that they're going to try to do it again, right? But it is a beta test. Like, I mean, I'm kind of the nature of that whole thing was a social engineering ploy to the point where it was to see how much would people adhere to this kind of ideology and this belief that we need to sort of reset the world. Okay, and I mean, that's kind of what people are saying too, what the Burning Man psyop is about, or what we're seeing there. And also like with Maui of, it's like a prototype of the 15-minute city or the enclosed community based around the Great Reset, right? And this is how we would supposedly be living if we were put into this situation, but it's more this thing of social engineering, behavioral manipulation, right? Where they're manipulating people's behaviors with these actions, okay? And so, yeah, and that's, you know, that's a thing, right? And we have to kind of stay in tune with what's being projected at us, right? We have to access that discernment within us to sort of register what is truth and what isn't, okay? So yeah, today what we're going to do is we're just going to look at some of the stuff behind the scenes here, especially with this Bill Gates stuff. What's he up to? Man, there's so much stuff. Like something came out about the Epstein and JP Morgan around, you know, after the fact, after he died and everything, how they reported $1 billion transactions being suspect, okay? $1 billion, right? So, and it just shows you like how far and how deep they're still holding on to these people. Like, we don't know. They haven't released this black book, right? This is the thing that could really wreck these deep state bad actors, right? Same thing, Julian Assange, like what's going on with him, right? Same kind of deal in the sense of this is a person that knows what's going on, right? And like, why, right? So yeah, we're gonna look at, yesterday we looked at sort of, situation, right? But let's just take a look. What is being released right now? What are they doing right now? A lot of this is definitely just running cover for the crimes that are being exposed daily with these guys. Okay, so yeah, let's take a look what's going on behind the scenes. Some of this stuff, the report on the mosquito release in Florida, is that true? What else are they doing? What's the experimentation? What's the beta test? Is this real? Is it going to be a climate lockdown? And then I think what we're going to do is then the next part of it, we will look at the election and Trump, whether some of these claims of him, being at risk, are these true? Yeah, let's just see if some of that is true. I've looked into it, but we're going to specifically ask, right, and just kind of get some clarity, even though it's pretty far off from the 2024 election. But what we're trying to do is, on an energetic level and a level of perception, to stay ahead of these guys. And we're not trying to do this. We are doing it. We're attempting to stay on that point. We have to keep the deep state reacting to us rather than them getting us into a reactive state. Okay, so take a look behind the scenes. What are they up to? Is there any validity to some of the reports that we're hearing about these guys? New vaccines, pushing malaria, creating a new disease, right? Let's see. Okay, so if you look back on some of the previous readings, like especially in the last week or so, this card, the Five of Pentacles, comes up. Now, this is past, present, future. Okay? Past, present, future. This is the spiritual motion. This is what spiritually crowns the situation, let's say. This is what spirit wants us to see. And this is what is below the foundations, right? And these cards here help describe or help explain and help maybe give advice, okay? And so like, this card is so funny. It's like a constant bombardment of just like energy, information, negative emotional content in order to wear us down, okay? But it's kind of not working. It really relies on people being shut down and not being able to communicate and also not to be able to think for themselves, okay? And that's what they've been trying to implement, and that is sort of part of it. And so like, we have to kind of go through a full cycle of this, okay, to sort of understand further like what the machination of their plans is. Now, many of us are starting to kind of really get it, okay? But we're talking about like a very large segment of the people on the planet need to sort of understand this, not just in the States, because this, like, even though the United States is very important in a lot of ways, it's not the only place, okay? This awakening, this taking back of our sovereignty is happening everywhere, okay? And it's so necessary for people to sort of realize that and not to sort of wait. We can't wait around anymore. That's kind of a thing, right? We have to kind of step forward. We have to initiate our own sense of direction, our own plans, but also, you know, like, especially if we are, you know, you know, some of these patriots on the inside, or people working in these organizations and stuff like that. I don't know if you were waiting to begin. No, the wait is over. It's time to activate. Right? And I think we all kind of understand that, right? But the thing is, it's building, right? So, yes, Bill Gates is doing stuff like that mosquito thing, and water, another deal with water. Yeah, and altitude and like weather and stuff. Like, I mean, I think it's like releasing things, seeing how effective it is to be able to release agents in high altitude, right? What kind of an effect that will have, right? And we're talking about like biological agents. So releasing things, right? But like this thing of like creating a chimera virus so that there can be like a vaccine and medicine around it. They're pushing stuff like this. They're doing it. I don't know, man, that the whole COVID deal was such a huge beta test that in many ways it's still continuing. Okay, so that's kind of part of this whole sort of op, right, is to witness and to analyze the behavioral changes that take place as the so-called virus mutates, and then there's a need for a new vaccine and this and that. Like, how are people going to respond? And it's just this thing of like slowly kind of chipping at us. Okay, and for some, some people think it's working, right? That's, I guess, and that's yeah, water. Yeah, all of this stuff, like all of their plans are being released beforehand. Now, I'm not sure why that is. Like, sometimes that is a kind of a patriot thing, like deep state patriots that are like on the inside fighting these guys, pushing information. But sometimes that's like, and it's whistleblowers, but it's also like information that gets leaked. So like, yeah, this second so-called lockdown, this was supposed to be a surprise. Something about it was supposed to happen, right? So they might release another virus or something to kind of get us in. People are already talking about like some kind of climate disaster that's going to create like a lockdown scenario, right? But it's almost like that what they wanted to do is release another form of this so-called virus or something, or the idea of it, to give validity of pushing the vaccine further, right? So let's take a look. 2024 election. Is there going to be a 2024 election? And what about this assassination thing? So same card from the previous spread, right? This was above, right? So it's so interesting, right? It's like we're carrying this burden, but we're going to come to realize we don't need to carry that burden. So yeah, that's part of a disinformation campaign that's put out there in order to sort of see where does this information go? Who's going to follow along with it? Are they going to accept if we do create, like for instance, if they trigger World War III, like a major war, like the United States, the War Measures Act can be put into place, or a War Measures Act, whatever it's called. But it basically will suspend the government, and it will enable the current government to stay in power for as long as the emergency is on. But see, the last time that kind of thing was passed, I guess there was something similar. That's how the Patriot Act came in with 9/11. But in World War II, that's how FDR was able to have 3 consecutive presidencies, right? And all of that. just the longer term and stuff because of the situation. So that's what they're trying. They're priming the people. They're priming their people. They're priming people on the other side. Like, how is this going to play out if they implement this? Okay, whatever it is, whether it's a virus, whether it's a climate disaster, or whether it's a war, they want to lock us down. So, and this is everywhere. We people have to sort of kind of accept this and sort of recognize it and call these people out and just keep continuing to do so. And we have no other choice, right? So, yeah, and I mean, enough people are in place to assure that there will be a 2024 election. There's enough people in that deep state infrastructure right now that are offsetting this, okay? So simultaneously, so you hear about like any kind of word of whatever agency implementing a new AI, for instance, to censor people. Well, there's also there's another one there. There's another group there. There's somebody there that is checking it. They want people to think that there's going to be an assassination. They want them to think that. They want them to like be looking over here when something is happening over here, right? And yeah, and they're throwing everything out at us right now. They're starting to like roll out everything at once, okay? And and it's like, hold on. Don't get demoralized. This is a long-term thing as well, right? So this isn't, we don't want all of our people knocked off right away, I guess is a good way to put it. I mean, part of this deep state element, like part of the patriot side of it, wanted to flush us all out for a good reason, to activate us. Because many of us would just hide. And that's part of it. It's like, we can't hide from this stuff anymore. We have to kind of go out and do this. So a big part of it is kind of like not having like amnesia around like what the COVID lockdowns and the vaccines and everything that was done. Not to have an amnesia around that, and to point out like how ineffective these were, and how there's numerous studies, so many studies that have been done on the vaccine injuries and how ineffective masks are and how they make us unhealthy and how lockdowns have ruined the mental health of people clear across many generations, especially younger generations, okay? And we've got to have that dialogue. We've got to continue to have it, right? The other thing too is to be vocal about censorship and call it out and say that it's happening. And I'm not talking about online, I'm talking about in your everyday world. Because it's necessary. That's what's coming. They're going to attempt in every way, shape, or form to put us into that position again. Because the beta test, one of the things that the beta test showed with the COVID thing is that there is a high number of people that are very susceptible to this, that will go along with this. That's what got us into this trouble in the first place, is people complying. So it goes back to that thing of like, no, I will not comply. And just be in this state right now where we can not comply, right? And that's what we got to do. So yeah, I think it's just fear tactics right now, getting people to really, and like, man, I'm telling you, like these people, like there's been so many movies and shows and things to illustrate how these bad actors play both sides or play every side. And so like, that's the thing. It's like these uniparty people in government all over the world, they need to be called out. They need to be called out. They all have the same policy, and it's all directed from the World Economic Forum, the Davos Group, the open Foundation Society people, all of these different little groups that make this thing. Yeah, wow, right? One more. People need to keep just working towards bettering themselves, working towards like waking up to what's been sort of impressed upon us, and other ways, like for instance, like with medical situations and stuff like that, it's if you can, it's always advisable to sort of seek alternate advice. People are hooked also to sensationalism. This is another thing. And I've known this my whole life, right? But people will believe the most fanciful lies. In fact, the biggest lies usually are believed the most. And that on our side of it, we need to be more discerning and not to circulate false information and disinformation that's purposely placed there to confuse us and to throw us off, because we need to be sort of deadly on point now. It is coming to very much ahead, but we are staying fully ahead of this curve, right? So it's like getting your energy from other sources than what you're used to, like, and it's like developing sort of a spiritual practice that doesn't necessarily like push the world away, but allows you to detach, allows you to sort of take part into the world in a better manner, okay? And recognize, like, you have to relearn, you have to unlearn a whole bunch of things in order to sort of get to this point where you're not dependent on their system so much, right? Because that's really what it is. They want to keep us hooked to that system. We have to take charge of our own realities and our own mental and emotional and physical well-being. We also have to take charge of that. So it doesn't serve us to blame the world for our woes. Like this world situation for the last 7 years, for the last 20 years, the last 30, this brings depression on. See, I can understand that, but we also have to take charge of that and sort of fix that situation ourselves and sort of see the brighter side to some of this, like that it is clearing, that this stuff needs to come to the surface. These things need to happen in order for this shift to take place. And to reaffirm it and to get into sort of like a positive frame of mind through affirmation and affirming that this world is shifting. We are taking part of it. I am an active member of this. And it doesn't matter what the life situation, it does not matter. We are all taking part, right? And that's a big part of it. And we need to sort of keep the vibration up high in order to sort of move through it. I hope that was clear and you got some information there. I really hope that you have a wonderful day or evening or wherever you are, and I hope to see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.